I'll seek recognition, Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't going to speak, but since one of the nominees from California has been specifically pointed out, I feel an obligation to respond to the attacks, frankly. Judge Gaston is an experienced, highly qualified nominee who has already served as a judge in California since 2015. Prior to her service on the bench, she served as a deputy public defender in San Diego. Judge Gaston has presided over more than 500 trials, including hundreds that have dealt with abuse and neglect of children. And during that time, she is dedicated to the protection of abused and neglected children, and members of the legal community, including child advocates, have praised her for her work to protect particularly vulnerable children. She also spent 3 years presiding over San Diego Superior Court's Resilience is Strength and Empowerment Court, also known as the RISE Court, which serves youth survivors of commercial sex trafficking, ensuring their safety and that their educational, psychological, and physical health needs were met. As part of this work, she also instructed state officials, including law enforcement, on how to best serve and protect children in the courtroom. And I lay all this out, Mr. Chairman, because it is patently incorrect to suggest that a position paper that Judge Gaston co-authored 15 years ago argues that sex offender registries do not keep children safe. Now, I understand the paper is being twisted in bad faith to suggest that Judge Gaston was diminishing the importance of sex offender registries and other laws related to sex offenders, but that is not what it said. What the paper actually did was make several public safety arguments, which, by the way, were supported by local prosecutors, as well as parole and probation groups, and grounded in research. Imagine that, grounded in research about how we can best ensure the safety of our children from sexual abuse by keeping sex offenders off the streets. And specifically, the paper that's being referred to argues that children may be less safe due to the unintended consequences of sex offender residency requirements, which push sex offenders into homelessness. Once a sex offender does no longer have a residence, it is impossible to track them and protect our children. I have entered into the record 4 support letters for Judge Gaston, and I will read from just a few of them to help further make the point. First, from a letter from presiding judge of the San Diego Superior Court, Judge Michael Smith, quote, her commitment to public safety, the protection and welfare of children, and the rule of law. He is writing in her support. Second, a letter from retired Superior Court judge and former district attorney, Bonnie Dumanis, who said that while the residency restrictions at issue in Judge Gaston's position paper were well-intentioned, all of us who care deeply about protecting victims of sexual assault came to realize there were harmful unintended consequences of adding residency restrictions that would not protect from further offending, but would cause those required to register to go homeless and register as transient. And finally, a letter from one of her former colleagues in the district attorney's office, Attorney Phyllis Shess, outlines in his letter of support that the position taken by the paper was not radical, and in fact, California law now provides for individualized residence restrictions rather than exclusion zones as the paper recommended. So I get into this level of detail, Mr. Chair, just to reiterate the point that the paper being referenced is a result of nothing other than a common sense position, advice, recommendation to state officials supported by members of law enforcement, child advocates, and judges. The letters also demonstrate just how very well regarded Judge Gaston is in the Southern California legal community and what an asset she will be on the federal bench. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'd like to say